Hello, Conversation Capital family. If you know anything about the Conversation Capital, we like to bring two main things. It's amazing content and amazing quality as well. And so we've been at loggerheads as a team. We didn't know whether to air this episode or not because although the content was super punchy, super amazing, it's with Dr. Pitsoe, and we're talking all things to do with fertility. And we did throw forward to the episode. We told you guys it was coming, but it turns out that the sound on the day one of our microphones weren't working correctly and so forth and so on. And so we've been at a bit of a tug of war, but we've decided that the content is so good that we still want to air the episode and share it with you guys. However, this is an official apology. It's not our brand, it's not our thing here, our community thing. It's not our thing. We are TCC and we always strive to give you the best. So please forgive us for this episode. Watch the episode nonetheless. There's so many nuggets of wisdom. There's so many gems to, salvage from the episode. And so please mind the quality of the sound. That being said, enjoy the episode. Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Conversation Capital. I've been throwing forward to this episode. If you've seen previous episodes, I've been talking about how we're going to get Doc in again, and we need to talk about how to preserve your fertility. First things first, hi Bonga, how are you doing? Voice of reason behind the microphone, Bonga Bueta. We've got myself, Ursula Mariani, and then our lovely resident gynecologist here at the Conversation Capital, Dr. Pitsoe. How are you?
Very well, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you
for
so
having me again.
Thank you. It is so hard to get a hold of you though.
That's why everyone knows him.
Yes, yeah.
Everyone is like,
Yes, everyone talks to me. That's my doctor. I was like, okay, we've got the celebrity doctor. Doc, it's so good to have you here. And thank you so much for always just being willing to, come and have a chat with us. Mm-hmm. And maybe perhaps let's dive straight into it. What's fertility? What is fertility?
Well, I think fertility, at least for purposes of this discussion, should be defined as the ability to conceive, to carry a pregnancy, and to deliver a baby that you take home. So it is a whole array of events that happen from conception to carrying the pregnancy for 9 months and delivering a baby that's alive and going home. Yeah, and that's fundamentally what it is. And if you think about it, fertility in simple terms is a function of nurture versus nature. And that says right there that in clarifying things, there are people that are born with inabilities to have babies. And there isn't really much you can do about that except to make people understand and make peace with that destiny. Our conversation today is how to preserve fertility. So preserve is the operative word, which means you have fertility at a certain age, and going forward, how to make sure that you don't get off the roadmap of fertility and fall into the potholes of infertility.
I didn't even know that there was such a thing as preserving fertility. My understanding was that it's either you're fertile or infertile, and that's the end of the road. So maybe if we can dive straight into that, Doc. Preserving fertility, how?
Yeah, and I think what we need to understand is how do you get fertile? You see the little embryo in the sac, the little girl embryo in the sac, if it were to speak, would never be able to say to me, as a gynecologist, or to you as a person, that I'm a girl child, I'm going to be fertile as an adult. No one can say that. There's a lot of luck involved in being fertile, and there's a lot of bad luck in being infertile. So you don't choose your parents. And those genes that you inherit is the thing that draws on your paper whether you're going to be able to have babies or not. There are people that are born without wombs. There are people that are born without ovaries. There are people that are born without normal. So there's just a whole lot of abnormalities that come with it. So fertility is not something you take for granted as a little embryo growing up as a girl inside. So having said that, we now want to say, what about the people that are fertile? And fertility is about 3 or 4 important things. The first thing is your anatomy. Do you have a uterus? Do you have tubes? Do you have ovaries? The second thing is your physiology. Does your body work well? The physiology is what controls your periods, your eggs, your ovulation. And the third thing is your chemistry, which goes hand in hand with the physiology. And most people that we're going to talk about are the people that, when they begin their periods, which is your menarche, have what we call a fertile body, which means your anatomy, your physiology, your chemistry, and all these things are in line and work. So the question is, if you are there at the age of 12, what can derail you, and how must you, as a person, stop that derailment? Yeah.
Okay, then that's the next question. I'm 12 o'clock. I'm 12 o'clock. I am 12 years old.
Yeah.
Everything's on track. Just started my period. You taught me a word when we were off air, menarche, which is my first period.
Yeah, your first period.
Bana. Yeah. So menarche, I just started my, I just had my first, I just had menarche, and everything is top 7. Yeah. How do I prevent derailing from being top 7 to
go in the way that to get derailed?
Yes.
Well, there are 3 things you need to do and that need to happen. The first one is education. The second one is education, and the third one is education.
Thank you, Doc.
And I think what we don't realize is the importance of education in our day-to-day lives. Because education allows you a whole array of things. First of all, you have tools to access information. Secondly, you have the ability to sift what is rubbish from not so much from scientific. The third thing is...
Sorry, for those of you guys watching at home, we just got load shedded, but we're going to continue. Doc, please go on.
Okay. So the third thing is the ability to sift away from what is superstitious beliefs to what is real scientific beliefs. What your grandmother tells you when you have period pains, you say, don't worry, you're going to be okay. As soon as you have your kids, you're going to be fine. To knowing truly. So education is really important. Who should get educated? That's the next important question. I think the girl child should get educated. I think the parents should get educated. I think the teachers should get educated. I think the churches should get educated. I think society in general should get educated. And so when you have an array of educated support structures around you as a girl child, it means things are going to be a lot easier for you not to get derailed. Everybody's informed. When they see you doing wrong, when they see you with wrongness in you, people come up, spring up and say, oh, wait a minute, this is inappropriate for these reasons. And that's that education. Now, if you then look at the reasons why people get derailed, you should really start in a continuum of age. And let's begin with the 10 to 20-year-old, how that happens. Now, at that age group, the number one, I think, the number one enemy to fertility is endometriosis, which starts off as period pains, severe period pains. And if that is not taken care of there and then, the journey for that child, the trajectory for that child is going to be in the pothole of infertility sooner or later. So parents, society, teachers need to understand when a child has got period pains, this child is at a risk more than 80% of being infertile in about 10, 20, 15 years.
If you don't
do anything about that. The second thing at that age, between 10 and 20, is, teenagers are at a stage where they don't see consequences for actions. And a lot of sexually transmitted diseases happen right there, where it's part of the fact that you get told, make the right choices, use condoms, do pre-sexual tests, make sure that you don't, people still go ahead and do that. And there was a time before endometriosis became big where sexually transmitted diseases were right up there in terms of how people's tubes get knocked and get taken off. That's the thing. So that's an important thing at that age. The other thing at that age is how people get fed the wrong foods. So people need to understand that when you get a body mass index that is out of normality, right? With every 5 kilograms above 80 kilograms, so 85, 90, 95, you lose about 10% of your ability to ovulate.
Oh my
so
goodness.
And then, of course, you're going to hear people say, but I've got a friend who's a dude and she's pregnant. Some people get lucky, but the majority of people do not, right? And that's really important. So at that age, where your body is still malleable and can still tend this way and that way, a good diet, exercising, understanding why you have to eat right. Because eventually, most people will want to have kids. But people do not want to make the investment. They think that, as you said, you're born fertile, you're going to be fertile. If you're having periods, you're going to have kids. And I see a lot of these things. So that's right there with it. And if you then look at the other side, the not so nice things is the beginnings of cancers. The last time I spoke about the young girl, the 7-year-old who had a cancer of the ovary, and these cancers, if not seen, your what's called germ cell tumors, your trophoblastic tumors, actually affect young teenage girls and rob them of their fertility later on in life. I've had about 3 or 4 kids that had those trophoblastic tumors, and right through life we fought these tumors for them to be alive, not for pregnant, just to be alive. And so these are the things that if people know what is normal and what is abnormal is happening and they rush to the doctors early, you can avoid the consequences. But the majority of people sit with these problems because there's superstition, there's belief, there's tradition, and by the time the hurt comes, it's too late for us to do anything. And that's between those 10 to 20-year-old.
10 to, yeah. These are like vital stages
Vital
to
stages
be able
for
to do
decision-making,
something.
lifestyle choices, parents who are educated, teachers who are educated, so that if you get that. Now, once you get into the 20s to 30s, other things creep into the picture. Yes, your STIs are still a major factor in the 20 to 30-year group. Yes, your endometriosis is still a major factor, but fibroids start creeping up. And every time I see a 28-year-old who's got fibroids the size of my fist, I ask myself, where have you been throughout? Because they don't grow fast. They really, really grow slow. So if you're 28 years old and they're the size of this, it means somebody missed them throughout. Or you didn't go. You didn't go. And this is why it's an important thing to educate people to say, you need to go and make sure that you are okay once in a while. And go to the right people who can then do appropriate assessments of your reproductive system to say your uterus looks normal, your ovaries look normal, your tubes look okay, you should be fine. But I get, and there's a funny thing, I get a lot of people who come in their early 30s, sometimes late 30s, who say, I can't have a child. And you say, but when did you know this? And she says, last year. I say, but it's impossible. She says, no, I got married last year and I'm trying to have a baby. And then you ask the question, but when you were 25, when you were 20, you had a boyfriend? Yes. You having sex? Yes. Without contraception? Yes. Didn't you fall pregnant? No. Weren't you wondering? And so people do not.
You think you're lucky?
You think you're lucky?
They think they're lucky.
Go.
You understand? And that therein lies the rub, is that people are just happy that I'm not contracepting, I'm not fully pregnant. But you know, common things occur commonly. If you're driving a car at 200 kilometers per hour into a wall, you must die. If you don't die, you must ask yourself, why didn't I die? You know? And that's too extreme, but that's the kind of thing I said. So if you look at these things, and everybody's educated about what is normal, and this is really, really important, what is normal? And as soon as you get out of the normal box into the abnormal box, people have to do something. People mustn't sit with abnormalities, you know, of periods, of pains, of vaginal discharges, of STI source without seeking treatment. Because that is what eventually knocks your fertility out of the box into the pothole. Yeah.
Doc, I mean, I hear you speaking of STI, you're speaking of diet. When you speak of diet, what about alcohol and smoking?
I think that's really important to know, that if anyone wants to talk to you about fertility and preserving fertility, alcohol and smoking are definitely not on top of the list. You must not. Okay. We prefer you not to do that. And alcohol and smoking are, to some people, as bad as the drugs that people take, the inappropriate drugs, you know. And so if you look at any literature on, I want to get pregnant, what must I do? The first thing they will tell you, stop smoking, stop drinking. Because what alcohol and smoking does to the male sperm, it does to the female egg. A lot of males who drink and smoke have very poor sperm function, have got very poor sperm motility, and the same thing happens to the eggs. So on a fundamental level, you know, trying to preserve fertility is almost like trying to live a very healthy life. But it's an investment that's worth doing, right? It doesn't mean you won't have other problems. But if you're a young girl with endometriosis and people know you're heading for trouble, there's so much we can do now, right? You get treatment early, stop the period, stop the damage, stop the pains. And if you're the kind of person who has that ability, your parents can actually go in, get your eggs harvested and stored away from your body so that when the right time comes with the child, you have that ability. But unless we engage with these things, we are not going to preserve fertility.
Doc, just for context, and I know ki emi because ki bona ka re yang affected directly. How do no drinking and smoking jwang? Jwang. At all.
No.
He's thinking, ako linking man me guys.
I think there's a sense of moderation and excess about everything else. But I can tell you this much, that if you smoke a packet of cigarettes a week, that's too much.
Yeah.
That's really too much, And I just know that you're better off if you don't smoke. But if you say, I have to smoke, I want to say if you've got a packet and maybe it takes you a month, that's fine. But everybody tells you when you get pregnant, stop smoking, right? And everybody tells you when you get pregnant, stop drinking. But the pre-pregnancy preparation, we tell people, if you want to fall pregnant, stop this, stop that, stop that. And about 2 cycles away from your pregnancy, that's a healthy space. And that's somebody who's fertile, who is
healthy, yes.
Healthy,
Yeah.
But if you've got problems,
Even
and you
more.
want a child, even more. Stay away from that.
Sure, Shapa 5K. Mata, if I healthy. Doc, and then I want to know this thing, and maybe it's not so much about preserving fertility, but my understanding is that in a month, we only have a 24-hour window to fall pregnant because the ovary, the ovum, the egg is released. The ovum is released, and then there's this 24-hour gap that it survives. Am I correct to say that?
Yeah, you're correct. And I think it's about 24 to 48 hours.
Okay.
So we always tell people...
So in a month, you've got 24 to 48. Having a baby is...
And people don't know that because they look at school kids falling pregnant left, right, and center. They think it can be done. But here's how it works. The male sperm is alive for 5 days in your body. So as a man, you can go on Monday and go away on Monday and make somebody pregnant on Friday. And you haven't been there for 5 days. But once you ovulate on Monday, no matter how many people come after that, nothing's going to happen. So the male sperm has the advantage because it can stay there for a long period. Yeah, that's what it is. So those are
okay. So you can do the deed, and then you've got like a few days that the sperm is living in you.
Yeah.
And saying, where's the egg, babes?
Yeah.
I want to make a baby. I want to make a baby, and this is something that's important to know. And because, like you're saying, kids are falling pregnant left, right, and center. It makes you think that it's actually this easy thing. But if you think about the technicalities of it, it actually is such a small window that one has to fall pregnant in a month.
Yeah.
You've got these 24 to 48 hours that this egg is alive and ready to be penetrated and to form this baby. And I think that's something that when I learned, I was just like, wow, falling pregnant is a miracle.
Yeah. And the other thing about why these kids are falling pregnant so easily is that, remember, they are at that menarche stage. They have not been contaminated by a lot of things. They still are lucky that they still haven't been through this, through that, through that. But you give them another 5, 6, 7 years of being in the jungle, infections, drugs, alcohol, they become a whole different ballgame.
Doc, what's the right age to fall pregnant? Because some people say that 14 is too young.
No, it is too
young. Your body is not developed. What's the right age?
I'll tell you what they said was the right age from research. 18 years old, your body is physiologically, physically...
I'm laughing because it's so far behind me.
But that doesn't mean it's the right time. It's on a physiological, anatomical, and emotional level, that age. Your body will deal with things best. After that, of course, it goes up, and we think it peaks about 30. You know that after 35, and people say this about 35 all the time, there's a line drawn. And if you look at all the research, after 35, there's a decline in the quality of eggs.
Sure.
There's an increase in the number of miscarriages that people have. And between 35 and 40, the decline in your fertility is so massive that the good eggs that make you pregnant almost disappear, and only the bad eggs are left behind. So if you fall pregnant around 40...
What's a bad egg?
The eggs that would leads to miscarriages,
Okay.
or the eggs that would lead to abnormal babies when they
Okay.
do that.
Okay.
So when you get towards the age of 40, a big number of people that have children that fall pregnant and not miscarried will have the big problem of abnormal babies. And so this is why at that age everyone has to do what we call a non-invasive prenatal test to make sure that this child that you're carrying is not abnormal, because you don't want to go there and deliver and have the issues of dealing with these abnormalities. So age is a very important aspect when you're planning your things. But as I said before, it's a continuum from the age of 10 right through the age of 35 that society has to be dealing with and saying and asking questions all the time. Am I okay? Am I going to be? So especially if you want to go to school and your career is number one. And I insist to a lot of my patients who say, I've got to go to school, I'm chasing my career. I say, the least you can do is come in, let's make sure that you are okay. And if you're okay, teach you how to preserve that.
Yeah.
Those are really important things. Otherwise, I can tell you the number of people I see in their 30s who say, no, I didn't use prevention. We didn't use condoms. I didn't fall pregnant because I was just like, you know, and now I want a baby, all of a sudden. And then you find fibroids, endometriosis, a whole lot of things that could have been dealt with a lot sooner and averted.
Sure.
And that's really important.
Sure, Doc. I think your message is always deal with it as soon as possible.
soon as
Find out as soon as possible.
Education, education, education.
Doc, what's the right age to get a pap smear?
The right age, well, the rule is that the first sexual encounter, you must make an appointment to do a pap smear. Because remember, the cervical cancer thing we talk about is a sexually transmitted disease. So if you're not sexually active, you don't have to do a pap smear. If you've never had sex in your life, you will not get cervical cancer of the squamous type. You know, there's some nuns who get an odd cancer called...
Did you say nuns?
Nuns, yeah. and I'm saying nuns because I'm assuming that they haven't had sex, right?
assuming.
But so if you've never been sexually active, you should not be doing pap smears. You're not going to get sexual. You're not get HPV. You're not going to get cervical cancer. But as soon as you start, you must do.
Because I know of anomalies as well of people that have, you know, gotten some kind of cells traces in their pap smear and they were like not sexually active. What does that mean? So is that the nuns?
That's the natural. So,
Okay.
so 95% of the cancers of the cervix are HPV, and the other 5% are non-HPV that the nuns can get and people can get. But it's very rare. It's not a common story to see and to tell.
Okay, so you're saying even a 16-year-old girl who's just started having sex should get a pap smear?
And you know, it's I guess public hospitals are there, but it's so unfortunate that your first sexual experience is usually at an age where you don't openly want to say to your mother, can I go get a pap smear?
Yeah.
Or when you get to the clinic and you're welcome, like, why? It's going to be like, why about a pap smear? Like, you know, what do you know? So it's just unfortunate it's at an age where you don't, for most girls, their first sexual encounter is not at an age where they are independent enough to say I'll go on my own, or it's just unfortunate that disconnect.
Yes, I mean there is this huge societal disconnect. I know of a friend who went to go get contraceptives at the clinic, and a lady who's a nurse who knows her mom and was so like, what are you doing here? You shouldn't. She's doing the right thing.
Exactly.
She's doing the responsible thing. You know, who are you to shame this girl who's trying?
And you're a health practitioner. You should be encouraging.
You should be encouraging that behavior.
Maybe adding to say little condom.
You
know, but for you to now add shame to that, and now she probably thinks she's going to tell my mother.
And I think that's the major problem there. And this is why, if you're a mother and you have a daughter, the relationship is important. It's important not only for her health sexually, for her health mentally, but for her health going forward in many ways. So you ought to be able to open up to her and make peace with the fact that you can't decide what she's going to do. But you can take her hand and say, if this is what you want to do, if you're ready to do this, here's how I suggest we do it. And here's why you must do it. Because a lot of people don't get that advice, not from their doctors, not from their mothers, and just find themselves in this pothole, and then it's like, how did I get here, you know? And I see that a lot. I mean, you know, I treat a lot of pelvic inflammation disease, which is really a product of two people that sometimes had sex without condoms, and without having checked each other to say, you know, and so the other one brings this kind of infection, and it knocks your tubes out. So the lifestyle choices that people can make, massive. And the only way you can make those choices is to have the right education backing you up. Because if you don't know A from B, that's it, you know. But the parents, the teachers, society, everybody has to come in. Everybody has to be on board.
Doc, you know, we're talking about fertility, and I feel like we're heading towards the end of the episode, but I really feel like I need to ask this question. In your experience, when couples come in and they're struggling to conceive, is it always the woman's fault, the man's fault? Generally, whose fault is it?
So it is always, and I have to speak very strongly to this, it is always a couple problem. I can tell you now, in this year alone, I was having a discussion with my research people. We've got probably about 35 to 40 couples that come in, and only 2 men have normal sperm counts. And so the rest have problems, right? So it's known that 54% of fertility problems are a combination of male and female issues, and about 29% the male alone, and then the other about 60% the female alone. So I don't allow a person. I mean, they'll come initially alone, most of the ladies, and I will tell them, this is the last time I see you alone. The next time you have to come with him, because I've got to take this thing away from the African mentality that it is their problem. You know, and
guys at home, I can shopping matsoho, man. Doc is doing the Lord's work. Yes, Doc.
So we have to do that, and I think it's a traditional belief. And even when they see that I was in this relationship, didn't have a child, I'm now married to this. That other woman now went and had kids. I'm married to Mrs. B, we're not having kids. He's still not saying, maybe it's you. No, you go see the doctor. And I insist. No, I'll see you now, but the next time I'm going to see him.
You've got to see him as well.
And it's a massive problem. We have massive.
And like you're
problems.
saying, like you're saying, immediately it's, can she bear children?
Yeah.
Is she fertile?
Yeah.
The burden is always, the onus is always on women, yeah.
That's a cycle in health overall. A lot of men depend on their health to maybe say, if you're negative, then I'm negative.
Yeah.
Men have this resistance to seeking health care across the board.
Yeah.
This is so true.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, it's never, I know that with women we encourage each other, you know, and I wonder if in the communities of men they're encouraging each other to make sure that they're okay. Given is shaking his head like, no, we don't.
Yeah.
And Doc,
we don't.
Does your blood type affect your fertility in any way?
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah. And then this is what I mean when I say education. Have that ability
How
to
about my
sift.
blood type O atshwere?
Yeah.
Thipa ka bohaleng.
So that ability to sift away the rubbish from reality is important.
But Doc, do you know that blood type somewhere, rhesus factor, blah, 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 does affect pregnancy, blah, 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 if you could.
No. The carriage of the pregnancy.
Yes.
So we want people that are rhesus positive.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're rhesus negative, the majority of people are positives. So chances are you're carrying a positive baby, and that's not good. So it can cause infertility in that way. But it's not like if you're positive or positive. Okay. You know?
Yes.
It can.
Oh, okay. So I think that was something that was important to highlight. Okay. Doc, thank you so much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
You're always so amazing, always sharing so much knowledge with us. People ask you questions, but Doc is not social media savvy, guys. You know, so we'll try to get the questions to him because I'm sure you guys have so many questions. But I think most importantly, what Doc always drives home is go see a gynecologist, you know.
Yes.
And I think...
Or see an appropriate practitioner.
Yeah,
Sometimes there are good general practitioners, there are good nurse practitioners that you can see as a first port of call, and then they should be able to send you across to that. But and I want to emphasize this, do not allow those people to be the ones who traffic you into the right and wrong space, because sometimes they just don't know. Empower yourself, tool yourself, educate yourself, and educate everybody else around you. And that's the way to do it.
Sure. Sure, education. And now in the era of Google, I don't know if Google's the right thing, but I mean, We've got we've got access to a plethora of knowledge and
Yep.
information. We absolutely have no excuses. Once again, thank you so much, Doc. It's been a pleasure having you. It always is. You always teach us so much. Let us know what you'd like us to ask Doc. Let us know what you'd like to hear from Doc, different topics. I think it's about time we cover PCOS and endometriosis in more detail. These are things that are plaguing our society and women right now, always on our thoughts and minds, and we're wondering what is going on. And I hope this episode enlightened you, even if it's just a little bit. Continue to like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends, your grandfather, your great-grandfather about the Conversation Capital. Much love and light. Goodbye and God bless.